McMinnville UFO photos. In May 1950, Paul and Evelyn Trent witnessed a UFO sighting at their farm in Sheridan near McMinnville, Oregon. They managed to grab their camera, which was loaded with film, and they had enough time to take 2 photos before the craft rapidly moved away to the west. Paul Trent's father also briefly saw the craft. The Trents did not get the photos developed straight away, as there was still some unused film left in the camera, which they used on Mother's Day on the 14th of May 1950. The Trents lent the negatives to a local newspaper reporter by the name of Bill Powell, who studied and examined the negatives, but Powell was unable to find any signs of fraud or trickery. Bill Powell printed both photos on the front page of the McMinnville Telephone Register newspaper with the title, "At Long Last, Authentic Photographs of Flying Saucer." The story and photos were subsequently picked up by the International News Service and sent to other newspapers around the nation, which gave them a lot of publicity. The negatives were lent to several other newspapers, UFO researchers, and the like. So, let's take a look at the photos. This photo shows what appears to be a UFO roughly in the centre of the picture, with a farm building on the left and cable lines towards the top of the picture. In the second photo, the UFO is moving away, and Trent had to change his position to get the photo. As the same object was photographed from 2 different positions, this allowed the photos to be analysed. The photos have been studied countless times by many people. Many researchers, including Dr. William Hartmann, who studied the negatives in 1967, said he was impressed by the couple's sincerity. He wrote to the Condon Committee that this is one of the few UFO reports in which all factors investigated, geometric, psychological, and physical, appear to be consistent with the assertion that an extraordinary flying object, silvery, metallic, disc-shaped, tens of meters in diameter, and evidently artificial, flew within sight of the 2 witnesses. Whilst he favoured the photos to be genuine, he did not rule out the possibility of fraud, and also thinks the photos were taken in the morning because of light and shadow positions, though some have noted that sunlight can bounce off of clouds and give a false impression. Bruce Maccabee, who was an optical physicist for the US Navy, completed his study in 1975. He analysed the photos and concluded that the photographs were not hoaxed and showed a real physical object in the sky above the Trent farm. He also analysed the position of various objects in the image, as well as an image prepared by Dr. William Hartmann when he visited the site in June 1967. Based on this, Maccabee argued that the line of sight of the 2 images intersected some distance behind the power lines seen in the photos, providing further evidence that it was not a small model suspended from the lines above. He also stated that his analysis of the object did not find any evidence of thread or string suspending from the power lines. However, not everyone thought these photos were genuine. UFO skeptics Philip Klass and Robert Schieffer stated their views that the photos were faked, and that the entire event was a hoax. They explained that the shadows on a building on the left-hand side of the photo proved that the photos were taken in the morning rather than in the early evening as the Trents had claimed. Additionally, their analysis of the photos suggested that the object photographed was small and likely a model hanging from power lines, visible at the top of the photos. They also believe that the object may have been a detached, side-view mirror of a vehicle from that time period. So it's been over 70 years since these photos were taken, and a UFO festival takes place every year in McMinnville. It is the 2nd biggest in America after Roswell, New Mexico. So, after weighing up the pros and cons, I'm going to now give my thoughts on these photos. Firstly, when I take a photo, I would usually have the subject of the photo roughly in the middle of the picture, and as we see here, it is approximately in the centre. If I wanted to fake a UFO picture, I would have brought the camera down a bit so that the power cable at the top of the photo was not visible in the picture. The fact that the cables are in the picture suggests to me that they simply pointed the camera at the subject and took the photo. There is certainly no sign that there is anything hanging off the cables above. The Trents also left the film in the camera for a time, until all the film was used before getting the photos developed. They never asked or received any money for the negatives, which were passed around from one newspaper or researcher to another for 25 years. I think the argument that the UFO is a side or wing mirror of a car is a good one, but after cropping the car picture and rotating it, I don't believe we're looking at that here. The side mirror bracket also looks too thick and long, and in the second picture it looks like the craft is further away. It also looks like we are viewing the UFO through semi-transparent clouds, something that could not be done if it were a side mirror or a UFO model hanging by a thread from the power lines. The Trents never went to the newspapers with their photos. They never wanted the publicity. They just showed them to a few people they knew and allowed them to be displayed at a church and a bank in McMinnville. A banker by the name of Frank Wortman was so impressed by them that he displayed them in a window at the bank. Then the newspaper reporter asked the Trents if he could study the negatives. Then it went on the front page of the newspaper. The Trents have consistently been described as honest, simple farm folk who never attempted to profit from their photographs, nor the notoriety they brought them. They did tire of the attention they got, and towards the end of their lives they stated that they wished they never had taken the photos. So, taking all of this into consideration, I believe these photos to be genuine, and even to this day they remain some of the best UFO photos known to exist. We regularly upload content and produce documentaries on all aspects of the paranormal and unexplained. So if you enjoyed this video, then please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my thoughts I've put forward here. Thanks for tuning in.